What's up, everybody? David Yakir here for Yak About Today, hoping you are better, healthier, and more informed than any generation that came before. So if the years 46 to 64 means something to you, then this is the place you want to be. Now put your headphones on, go for a run, and listen to what we yak about today. All right, David here, and I've been thinking about retiring. I figure a little tennis, a little traveling, see the friends and family that mattered in life. Then I thought about it, and I changed my mind. Why? That's what we'll yak about today.
Don't talk back.
All right, my wiser and more mature children. Oh, no, you didn't say that. We are going to introduce a new segment. It's called Yak About This Week in History. I hope you enjoy it. And in the Yak About Tech segment, we'll ask Alexa, what can she hear? And more importantly, what is she going to do with it? And if we have some time, we'll do some yak tips. But first, I want to do a shout out to New Vision Eye Center. As you know, they were the first sponsor to believe in yak, and quite frankly, the first doctors I trusted with my eyes. So, how can you beat that for a perfect fit and a perfect sponsorship? So I want to thank them and tell you guys, if it's your eyes, really, go see Dr. Minotti, Rhino at Tate, and O'Brien. And you know why? Because I wouldn't trust my eyes to anyone else. So did you know that many Americans try retirement and then change their mind? So I read this story in the New York Times by Paula Spann about this woman, Sue Ellen King, who had circled her retirement date on the calendar, and that date was March 8th, 2015. She had worked as a critical care nurse and a nursing educator at the University of Florida Health, UF Health, in Jacksonville, Florida, for 38 years. The co-workers joked that she was there when the hospital's foundation was laid, which just so happens to be true. So the send-offs went on for days. There were parties in the units where she had worked, a dinner in her honor, gifts including a framed photo signed by all her colleagues, and Miss King felt ready. She turned 66, her full Social Security retirement age. She invested fully in the hospital's 401k plan and consulted with a financial advisor. She and her husband, who had already retired, had paid off the mortgage on their 3-bedroom ranch. They took a week off and took a trip to Hilton Head, South Carolina, to celebrate their impending freedom. But her retirement lasted just 3 months. She had done all the preparation, except she never really thought about what life was going to be like. For Miss King, she spent days organizing recipes and photos and lunching with friends, and she felt it all proved less engaging than she expected. So, out of boredom, I think, when her hand-picked replacement needed a maternity leave, Ms. King jumped at the chance to return for 3 months. And now she's back at work in a part-time position that she designed for herself. She calls herself a failed retiree. Now, economists refer to this sort of U-turn as unretirement, or in partial retirement, where an employee cuts back to a part-time status but doesn't actually leave the workplace, as my friend Andrew Levy in New York did a day after he retired from the crafts business. Now, unretirement is becoming more common. A 2010 analysis by Nicole Maestas, an economist at Harvard Medical School, found that more than a quarter of retirees later resumed working. And a more recent study from Rand Corporation, the nonprofit research firm, published in 2017, found almost 40% of workers over 65 had previously at some point retired. Usually, the traditional schedule says, look, we work to a certain age, then we retire, and then we see the world. But now, we see people lengthening their careers. A Pew Research Center analysis of data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics supports that observation. It reported that the proportion of Americans over age 65 who were employed, full-time or part-time, had climbed steadily from 12.8% in 2000 to 18.8% in 2016, and more than half were working full-time. Even more people might resume working if they could find attractive options. They asked people over 50 who weren't working or looking for a job whether they would return if the right opportunity came along. About half said yes. So, why go back to work? We hear endless warnings about Americans having failed to save enough, and the need for income does motivate some returning workers. But Dr. Maestas, using data from the National Health and Retirement Study, has found that the decision to resume working doesn't usually stem from unexpected financial problems or health expenses. It looks like something people are doing intentionally instead of an "oh my God" response. Right? People are running out of money, but not all, right? Some have to go back to work. But many, it's a choice. Longer lives, better health, and less physically taxing jobs than in previous generations help provide that choice. Dr. Maestas pointed out that you hear certain themes: a sense of purpose, using your brain, and another key component is social engagement. Earning money, while welcomed, really proved the primary reason. So, as for me, your favorite yak, I didn't really change my mind. It was many years ago when I was about 15, my friend Andrew and I, with 2 tape recorders, started our own radio stations with an audience of 2. In graduate school, I recreated some of the great radio dramas as part of my master's thesis. My career years took me in a different direction. After years in the theater and television world and the digital marketing world, I thought about leaving the workforce. But then I rediscovered something I truly loved: radio broadcasting, which now has the benefit, via podcast, to reach massive audiences. And although my audience might still be the 2 of us, I think I'll stick with it until my voice goes.
You talk too much, you worry me to death. You talk too much, you even worry my pet. You just talk too much. You talk about people that you don't know. You talk about people wherever you go. You just talk too much. You talk about people that you never seen. You talk about people, you can make me scream. You just talk too much.
And we are back. And we've got a new segment for you, as I told you earlier, This Week in History. And for all of you World War I aficionados, we will begin with, on April 2nd, 1917, President Wilson delivered his war message to a special session of Congress, declaring that Germany's latest pronouncement had rendered his armed neutrality policy untenable, and asked Congress to declare that Germany's war stance was an act of war. He proposed the United States enter the war to, quote, vindicate principles of peace and justice in the life of the world against selfish and autocratic power. The German government, Wilson said, means to stir up enemies against us at our very doors. He then also warned that if there should be disloyalty, it will be dealt with a firm hand of repression. For Wilson closed with the following: we have no quarrel with the German people. We have no feeling towards them. but one of sympathy and friendship. We are glad to fight for the ultimate peace of the world, the German people included, for the rights of nations great and small, and for the privilege of men everywhere to choose their way of life and obedience. The world must be made safe for democracy. So, DJ, that's your lesson for today. Okay, a few short ones here. On Monday, April 4th, 1949, 12 nations signed the Atlantic Treaty, creating the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. And Saturday, April 4th, back in 1818, the United States Congress adopts the flag of the United States with 13 red and white stripes and 1 star for each state, which was then 20. Now, many people are under the impression that when the flag was adopted, there were 13 stars for the original 13 colonies, which was really not the case. There were 20. And on April 2nd, 1792, the Coinage Act is passed, establishing the United States Mint. And in the arts world, on Wednesday, April 2nd, 1800, Ludwig van Beethoven leads the premiere of his First Symphony in Vienna. And finally, the death of a man who can teach some lessons to our current leaders. On Thursday, April 4th, 1968, Martin Luther King was staying in room 306 at the Lorraine Motel in Memphis. The motel was owned by businessman Walter Bailey and named after his wife, Lorraine. The Reverend Ralph David Abernathy, a colleague and friend, later told the House Select Committee on Assassinations that King and he had stayed in room 306 at the Lorraine Motel so often that it was known as the King Abernathy Suite. And according to biographer Taylor Branch, King's last words were to musician Ben Branch, who was scheduled to perform that night at a planned event. King said, "Ben, make sure you play Take My Hand, Precious Lord, in the meeting tonight. Play it real pretty." King had gone out onto the balcony and was standing near his room when he was struck at 6:01 p.m. by a single bullet fired from a Remington Model 760.
Take my hand, lead me on, help me stand. Help
Okay, so we're back now, and how about some Yak About Tech? So let me begin this before we get to sort of Alexa and that story. So a lot of you have been hearing about your data exposure at Sears and Delta Airlines and Saks and Lord & Taylor and Facebook and pretty much a dozen other places of business. And I sort of want to tell you, since we do business and communicate using the internet, the only advice I can give you really is to change your passwords, or I really highly recommend that you use a password manager such as LastPass or Password One, and go to your bank or go online and check your bank and your credit cards on a regular basis. And what you should really be doing is following all your transactions. Hopefully this is only temporary and our information is guarded better in the future, since we're not going to give up what we do on the net. Okay, so let's go on to our next story here. What do we got? Oh, yes. So everybody's asking, Alexa, what can you hear? But more importantly, what will you do with it? So, I don't know if you all remember, but Amazon ran a commercial on this year's Super Bowl that pretended its digital assistant, Alexa, had temporarily lost her voice. It featured celebrities like Rebel Wilson, Cardi B, and even the company's chief executive, Jeff Bezos. So while the ad sort of riffed on what Alexa can say to users, the more intriguing question may be what she and other digital assistants can hear, especially as more and more people bring smart speakers into their homes. Now, Amazon and Google, the leading sellers of such devices, say that assistants record and process audio only after users trigger them by pushing a button or uttering a phrase like, "Hey," or "Alexa," or "Okay, Google." But, and this is the interesting part, and stay with me here, each company has filed patent applications, many of them still under consideration, that outline an array of possibilities for how devices like these could monitor more of what users say and do. Now, that information could then be used to identify a person's desires or interests, which could be mined for what else? Ads and product recommendations. In one set of patent applications, Amazon describes how a voice sniffer algorithm could be used on an array of devices, like tablets and ebook, to analyze audio almost in real time when it hears words like love, bought, or dislike. And a diagram included with the application illustrated how a phone call between two friends could result in one receiving an offer for the San Diego Zoo and the other seeing an ad for a Wine of the Month Club membership. And some patent applications from Google, which also owns the smart home product maker Nest Labs, describes how audio and visual signals could be used in the context of elaborate smart home setups. And one application details how audio monitoring could help detect that a child is engaging in mischievous behavior at home by first using speech patterns and pitch to identify a child's presence. One filing said, a device could then try to sense movement while listening for whispers or silence, and even program a smart speaker to provide a verbal warning. And yet, a separate application regarding personalizing content for people, while respecting their privacy, noted that voices could be used to determine a speaker's mood using volume of the user's voice, detected breathing rate, crying, and so forth, and medical condition based on detected coughing, sneezing, and so forth. In a statement, and here comes the statements, Amazon said the company took privacy seriously and did not use customer voice recordings for targeted advertising. Amazon said that it filed a number of forward-looking patent applications that explore the full possibilities of new technology, and that they take multiple years to receive and do not necessarily reflect current developments to products and services. And Google said it did not use raw audio to extrapolate moods, medical conditions, or demographic information. The company added, all devices that come with the Google Assistant, including Google Home, are designed with user privacy in mind. And tech companies apply for a dizzying number of patents every year, many of which are never used and are years from even being possible. But Jamie Court, the president of Consumer Watchdog, a nonprofit advocacy group in Santa Monica, California, which published a study of some of the patent applications in December, said, when you read parts of the application, it's really clear that this is spyware and a surveillance system meant to serve you up to advertisers. All right. I'm not sure we have enough time here. I wanted to do a Yak About Health segment. I'll do it next week, about a 7-minute workout. And let's see. And, I have a piece on some yak tips on when to book flights. Can't get to it now. But anyway, this is David Yakir. Peace. And I'll play the recording out. And once again, I want to say thanks to our listeners for staying tuned in. Because of you, we are now carried on some of the largest podcasting systems worldwide, from iHeartRadio, iTunes, and TuneIn, to Spreaker and Blueberry in the U.S., to iVooc in Spain and South America, and Omni Studio in Australia. And chances are, wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you want to stay in touch, look for Yak About Today on Facebook, Twitter, and Google+, or write to us at yakabouttoday@gmail.com. And, of course, if you like us that much, download the Yak About Today mobile app on the App Store. This is David Yakir, and until next week, yak amongst yourselves. Peace.
Take out the papers and the trash. Boy, you don't get no spending cash. If you don't scrub that kitchen floor, you ain't gonna rock and roll no more. Yakety yak. Don't talk back. Just finish.